Welcome back to the Don't Write That Book podcast, where you can learn how to write your bestseller and own your authorship. Follow along with us as we give you an insider's view of the book industry. Now, here are your hosts, myself, Mike Michalowicz, and AJ Harper. Our last episode ended with this thrashing 80s rock tune that no one will hear because I just listened to the tracks. So how we're recording this is you're at Madeline Island recording locally. Mm-hmm. I'm in New Jersey in the studio here recording locally. And then we have Reaper, which is the software so we can hear each other, recording also in the background. Not Reaper, Riverside. So through Riverside, I was hearing from your microphone this rocking song, and you're like grabbing at your ears, like, what's going on? And you said it was getting so loud. It was getting louder?
Yeah, it got so loud, I could barely hear you, so I couldn't concentrate at all. So apologies if we sounded weird at the close of the last one. I was trying to get out of there. I was just trying to,
I could tell you, like you're giving me the wrap it up signal. That's so funny. So we have no idea what caused that. And we didn't reboot our computers, so there's a 50% chance it will return.
No.
In this episode, we're going to talk about what we wish we knew. And I'll start off with a acknowledgement of you. It's about your OCD. You talked about it last week. Mm-hmm. I don't call it OCD. Good enough is not good enough for you. And that, I think, is an extraordinary talent. It's so easy, particularly in the marathon journey of creating a book. On the last leg, when you're taking that last corner and you see the finish line, it's just easy to say, I'm done, I'm here. And in some ways, it's such an important component because the final fine tuning happens then. And I've noticed my own tendency to say, yeah, we're fine. And you're like, no, good enough's not good enough. And if there's still an error or something that can be improved, even though the publisher themselves, the editor is saying, no, we can't make any more changes. You're like, yes, we are. Mm-hmm. You stick to your guns. And a book, particularly in today's environment with AI creation and so forth, the greatest books are books that the final 1%, the author, the team exerts the most effort for making extraordinary. And so I want to acknowledge, because that's what you do. You attribute to OCD. I attribute to good enough is not good enough.
I mean, it's probably both. It's a legit thing I have. Sometimes people say OCD and they're using it incorrectly. They're just meaning that they are particular. But that's not OCD. I'm thankfully don't have it in a debilitating way, and it's just shows up as checking, which has served me well in my professional life, but is super annoying to my family. So we'll just put it like that. But I'm 52 now, so I've learned how to manage it. But it's a real thing, and it wasn't so easy when I was younger, honestly. So thank you for acknowledging that. But it's an actual thing that I've learned to work to my advantage. Which I think, that's all we can do, right? Is figure out how to work the things about us to our advantage instead of always trying to eradicate everything.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Align with how you've been defined.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I admire about you is you're always trying to find a way, how can I make this work with just who I am instead of trying to fundamentally change who I am?
Thank you.
And
it's super important to me.
Well, do you know that is the antithesis of the self-help movement?
Okay. I didn't observe that.
I remember when I was still ghostwriting, and a lot of the books I wrote were for self-help authors. And I'm proud of a lot of them, but I also felt increasingly that they were that there was this undercurrent of you need to be fixed. And I don't think you ever think like that. I think you're trying to figure out, okay, well, this is what I've got. These are my resources. How can I make the most of it? And you're doing that in a business, but I think you do that with yourself as well. So this is who I am. This is how I think about things. This is how I roll. How can I make the most of it? And it's not that you're not trying to improve. I think you are constantly trying to improve, and you're naturally curious in that way. But I don't think you fundamentally look at yourself as broken, and I don't think you look at anyone else as broken. I think a lot of the self-help industry is saying we have to always be better and always fix. And some of my favorite self-help books are books where people are allowed to be themselves. And this is just another way of looking at yourself. And I think that's one of the reasons that I became so disenchanted with ghostwriting, was this constant drive to, well, the reason you don't have this in your life is because you did these things wrong. And it's just that it's really punishing, and it doesn't actually help. So, yeah.
Thank you.
And that's the root of the new Profit First, and also the new book, The Money Habit.
That's what I was thinking as you were sharing that. So thanks for the kind words. I believe it to be true. And the money habit, we refrain a few times. Don't change who you are, channel who you are. And you inevitably see more results every single time. You know, with knowledge comes power, and knowing yourself intimately gives you such an advantage for getting the results or achievements you're pursuing, but also in a very harmonious way. Mm-hmm. You talk about knowledge as power. This episode's about the things we wish we knew about the industry in general, publishing, writing, everything. And what's so cool is you wrote down these series of questions I love for us both to tackle and go question by question. I think other questions will come out of this. Mm-hmm. And I also want to invite our listeners, if you have questions that you want answered, you can just email us. It's hello@DWTB, don't write that book, podcast.com. And when you email us there, email us the questions you have. You know, we want to dedicate shows to it. And these are also the questions that you answer at your retreat. I call it a retreat center because it feels that way.
It's not, it's not that grandiose. It's a studio.
Well, the nature is so grandiose.
Yeah.
It's immersive. And there's this great disconnect from the daily world to this focused world at your location. And I suspect these questions come up in different flavors over and over again at your retreats.
I think somewhat, yeah. I would say more in conversation, in dinners, in group activities, but you know, we're primarily focused on reader journey there. But yeah, of course, all this stuff about publishing comes up in the quiet moments and in the relaxed, casual moments where people are trying to figure out what it means to be an author and how to navigate this publishing industry.
So I'd love to go through these questions, and you share maybe two voices. One is your own natural instinct when you can reflect back to it and you were getting started, but also the collective voice of the community you're serving. Mm-hmm. And by the way, for our listeners, go to ajharper.com right now. You can go and work with AJ personally at her retreat center on Madeline Island. So the first question you have here, it says, what do you wish you knew about publishing when you first started? I have a few responses that come to mind, but I want them to kind of mature a little bit. What's your thoughts on that one?
I mean, there's many, depends on which aspect, right? But I think I wish I understood that absolutely no one knows how to sell books. Like when I say,
including the publisher.
No, I mean, it's really like we're all just doing our best to try and different strategies that work. Yes, we know and fundamentally how to sell them. But I don't think people can really put their finger on why did this one go exactly? Why versus this other one? Yes, there are some things that people need to absolutely do, but I don't know. I feel like there's always this X factor. And I wish I had known at the start that the industry is primarily gambling. That at least traditional publishing is gambling. That waiting for the big hit, knowing that a lot of the books aren't actually going to do well, but not necessarily telling authors that. And there's a huge disparity there of communication. So a publisher knows kind of how they think the book might do, but they know most of their books are not going to earn out. And so, but imagine if they told the author, we're not banking on this one, or we're taking a chance on you, but we know that a percentage of our books are not actually going to earn out. It's just, you wouldn't feel good about the relationship, you know? You wouldn't feel like, oh, wow, this publisher really believes in me. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so I wish I understood that there's no magic thing that's happening over there, that everybody's just trying to figure this out. And I think then I wouldn't have, I think our tendency to put too much faith in any one person in publishing is probably misplaced, including me, including both of us.
I was talking with Daniel Amen yesterday. He's the author of Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. It's sold millions of copies. And he's looking to come to our author event. So I go through an interview process. And we kind of talked about the subject. He goes, no one gets that a publisher does not market your book. You are responsible for it. And even though it's talked about constantly on this show, you hear it from fellow authors, I didn't go in with that belief. I was like, yeah, but my publisher is Penguin Random House. My publisher will market my book. And so I wish I really could comprehend that they don't market the book, at least in the way that the author perceives it. Yes, they get into distribution. Yes, they tell their sales team. But I didn't understand that a publisher, my one book, while it's extraordinarily important to me, that's the one book they launched that day, and they have another book coming out tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And within the entire publishing arm, it's probably the one book they launched that hour. Like there's so much coming out of that. I think another thing that comes to mind is the music industry. And I think we can leverage this. I wish I knew that the publishing industry for books was so akin to the music industry and albums and all that stuff. Because as I learn more about that, and I don't know much about, but as I learn more about it, and I've talked with some musicians and so forth, they've shared that it's the same thing, is they don't know which one's going to be the hit. Mm-hmm. And it's everything's so obvious in hindsight. I was watching Billy Joel's documentary recently. It's on a streaming channel. It's amazing. It's 2 episodes. Highly. Okay. It's each episode's 2 hours, so it's a 4-hour commitment over how much time you want to spend with it. But we watched it, my wife and I, over a weekend. Day 1, Saturday was 1. Day 2 was on Sunday. And Piano Man wasn't a hit. Like, it came out and it was okay. It was an okay tune. It needs to be marketed, which makes no sense. It is his closing song. It is what he's known for. It's the number one song, perhaps, that any piano player will ever play. Like, I went to a dueling piano bar and they're like, Piano Man! Everyone's shouting it out. And the performer knew it word for word, note for note.
So does everybody else in the room.
Exactly. And everyone sings along. And when it came out, it was like, oh, that's okay. It had to be marketed. And how he did it was through his concerts and so forth, and radio play and pushing it and all these different things. And he wrote very early on in his career in the 70s. Well, the same thing is with books. I wish I knew that a publisher, to your point, doesn't know what's going to work, but the publishing industry is like music. If it gets enough airplay on the right channels, you got a shot. When people start talking about it and making requests for that tune, you've got a shot. When you're on stage and they want to hear that presentation one more time, you as the author better be pumped up to be speaking or keynoting on Profit First for the 1,000th time, as opposed to talking of the new subject that's of interest to you. Now that's
right. That
not necessarily publishing.
Profit First is your Piano Man.
Profit First is my Piano Man. Mm-hmm. And for now, and I'm trying to write, I believe, the Piano Man, but nonetheless, the publishing industry is in this churn state because they don't know either, to your point.
Yeah. And I think authors need to know that going in.
What do you wish you knew about writing? Now you got to go rewind until age, 7 before you were writing?
Well, I was a playwright for a long time. And then I started in publishing about 21 years ago. I wish I had known what I learned through Steve Pressfield. I wish I had known about resistance and that I understood that writer's block isn't real and that the resistance I had to writing things was normal, not special. I'm not special. And that it's going to keep coming back no matter what I do, that all I can do is manage it. And I think that if I had known that earlier, honestly, I'd probably still be a playwright.
Really?
Yeah. I think I'd still be a playwright.
Huh.
Yeah. Because I would have rocked that.
And you're returning to that genre.
No.
With I know the work you were doing with Michael and Amy Port for a while was kind of pushing you in that direction.
Well,
the work you did with Garrett Gunderson.
Yeah. I mean, I did. It's almost like Michael Port would call me up and say, hey, do you want to, or Amy, and say, you want to work on this thing with us? And, they're theater kids too. So that's what we bond over. Getting to play like that and have fun writing a script. So I would write a theatrical keynote. That's the closest I ever would come back, to get back to playwriting. And it was so fun because they approach it in the development way that theater people do. So yeah, it was like coming home, and I would do maybe 1 or 2 projects a year, but I don't, I put a pause on that. Mostly because they had a change in leadership over there. And I really just want to hang with Michael and Amy, Like it was just...
Yeah, they're such good people.
Yeah. No,
hey, have you ever got the emails about his baked goods?
Are you kidding me? Yes. And I'm telling you, and I've talked to him about it too. We went out to dinner in July, and also told him what I'm interested in terms of the type of dessert I'd like him to make. So he's gone from not baking at all to like expert level baking. It's true Michael Port fashion, right?
Yeah,
it can't just be like, I'm just make some brownies. No, he's completely renovated part of his house too, so that he can do it
just for baking.
Yeah.
I signed up for the list, but I'm not receiving the email, so I got to see what happened.
So what you need to do is you need to text him and say, this is what I'd like you to make me now. And then, no, I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
And he'll make it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, he does everything in an excellent way. But I mean, I'm sure I'll do some fun things and playing with them again. But, my dedication has been to publishing for the last 20 plus years. I don't think I miss it that much. Maybe I'll do it again someday. But I'll tell you what, if I had known back then what it takes to be productive as a writer, which I only learned through reading The War of Art. Yeah, I probably would have never met you because I would have just been writing. I would have been successful at it because I have a drive and a sense of strategy that I think that has served me. So I'm not going off into this creative space without I will make money at the thing is what I'm saying. This is just how my brain works. So I think if I had conquered that, I would still be doing that.
When it comes to me, what I wish I knew about writing, there's 2 books I wish I read, but one of them didn't exist at the point, was your book, Write a Must Read. It's literally the entirety of your book is a world-class education. But there was another book that one sentence revealed what writing really is to me. And the book is On Writing Well by William Zinsser. And I think it was the opening sentence. And what he says is, the essence of writing is rewriting. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that is it. That is it. I thought writing was flow state and you just get the words out and it works. And what it is getting the idea out, but then it's the polishing of the words and the rewriting that, at least for me, it can be one sentence on the 5th or 7th or 12th time that it's arrived. And for me, that's where writing, what they call the labor of love, that's the labor part. I do not like the rewriting. I want to move on. That's my natural tendency. Just go, next thing. And I have to very consciously pump the brakes and rewrite. And I've shared the story in the show before. There was that one flap copy or something I was writing, and I spent literally 6 hours writing 100 words or 200 words and send it to you. This is years back. And you're like, yeah, this is good. And I was like, yeah, I get it now.
See, but
the essence of writing is
I think,
rewriting.
I think any artist knows that that's the creative process. Whether it's, it doesn't matter what you're making. We know that there's a process of revision in some way where the end product, if you want to call it a product, or the art is revealed over time. And I think most authors are stunned at what that process is really like, thinking instead that it's a process of getting something right in a specific period of time. And it's not. It's a revise, reveal process.
For back to Billy Joel, I was just Googling to make sure I'm saying this correctly. Yeah. So the Piano Man is written to a waltz, which is a 1-2-3, 1-2-3 beat, which originally wasn't, I believe. And when they were discussing it, just didn't sound right until they introduced this element. But what's funny is the rest of the band was not familiar with it. They didn't know what the drummer did not know a waltz beat. So he had to learn it before he could actually perform it in Piano Man. I think that's part of writing is, as I went through the process, I had to learn it's way different than writing an email or general communication, which I did a lot of prior to becoming an author. It's a whole different process. For me, it's like learning the waltz.
You mean long form writing?
Long form writing.
Yeah.
What do you wish you knew about publishing contracts?
I wish I knew that that a lot of things could be negotiated instead of just accepting whatever the contract was.
Yeah, I got to back that one up 100%. Just because there's an industry standard doesn't mean it can't be negotiated.
Mm-hmm.
One thing we negotiated very effectively with the books with Penguin, particularly with Profit First, I simply asked a question to Kaushik, the editor at the time, what could authors ask that they don't typically ask? And he thought about it and said, it costs us basically nothing to print a book. So it's like, I can get copies of Profit First printed for less than 50 cents a book, 25 cents a book or something, because we print at such a massive volume. I think they even own the printer.
They do. Yeah.
So he goes, what authors don't ask for is free copies, complimentary copies of their own book. So I said, well, how many can you ask for? He goes, well, most people get 25, 50. I said, well, if I ask for 500, he's like, well, do you have a reason for that? I said, yeah, I can give it to 500 people to market it. I said, how about 1,000? He goes, do you have a reason? They sent over the years, thousands of free Profit First books that we distributed aggressively all over the country to different influencers. And that was a huge piece of marketing. Mm-hmm. In the contract itself, you can negotiate the terms. Most advances, if you get an advance, are in 4 tranches. I know authors have gotten in 3 tranches. I know authors who've gotten 1 tranche through negotiation, but also through their prestige.
Yeah, I mean, that's a factor. If you're a newbie, it's harder to negotiate, but you can try.
Yeah, well, what are the cards you're holding? You got to play those cards.
Yeah.
One thing I didn't know about contracts is they do talk about a clawback. And a clawback is where if your book does not perform based upon whatever parameters, that the publisher has a right to request your retainer back. So your advance back. And in practice, it only happens, it sounds like, when an author fails to deliver a completed manuscript.
Yep.
But once a book is out there, it can happen, but clawback is really rare.
Very rare.
I got a call from a very well-known name. Like, everyone listening in will know this person. Their spouse called me on their behalf. I know them, but their spouse called. They had published a memoir, and I was strongly discouraging them from doing a memoir just because the memoir already existed in multiple states.
I know who you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And I said, you have an opportunity for prescriptive nonfiction here. You can talk about a subject better than anyone else can, and there'll be demand for it. And when I called Penguin, they said, that's the book we want. Mm-hmm. And they're ready to put down $1 million or more for this book. And the author chose to do a memoir. And it's a flop, meaning that the demand is very low for the book. Hopefully it'll catch momentum. There's other activities hopefully supporting it. And I read the book. It's a freaking great book. So I asked him, I said, has there been any threat of a clawback or any discussion? I said, not a word. And this person got an advance in the millions, and there hasn't been a request for a callback, and the book is sold in the thousands. So just to show you
that's the gamble, but that's the gamble.
That's the gamble that the publisher made. Yeah.
But that's their gamblers. That's what they are.
They totally are.
Yes, that's what they are. I wish I wish that they would back. I wish, God, I wish. If I could get publishers to do anything, it would be to change the way that they interact with authors. So that
I know.
It wouldn't even take that much. It wouldn't even take that much. Because here they are investing all this money in authors and then literally telling them nothing about how to sell it. It's
maddening.
Nothing.
It's maddening. They, Penguin Random House had they do have an author portal where they had some educational content there, but no one walked with you one-on-one.
No, because, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you, but your main point of contact is not qualified to be training you in that way. Your main point of contact is your editor, and they have 5 other jobs to do with your book that that's not their aptitude.
Right.
Project management. Right. They're the liaison with the marketing team and the sales team. Also, you just mentioned the contract negotiations. So they're the middle person and point person for every one of those things, and often are not qualified or even just good at. Like maybe they're just not a detail person, so the project management falls off, or they don't know anything about marketing, and so they're just shrug,
Yeah. And not that I've worked with other mainstream publishers, but the story is the same. There is no education, so I'm not picking on PRH.
No. It's just it's the bureaucracy. It's the way they've set up the whole industry.
And this is with hybrid publishers. I've heard the same too. Is there really is an education? So you're left on your own. What do you wish you knew about your own abilities?
Oh, that's a good question. I wish I knew that I didn't know at the time that when I started out in publishing, that I had a good strategic mind. I knew I was a good writer, and I knew I could write just about anything. And I learned over time through ghostwriting that I could help authors really solidify their intellectual property. I knew I could do all that, but I didn't understand that I had a good strategic mind. And I wish I had known that earlier, because I probably would have advocated for myself and taken more chances had I known that.
I wish I knew, and I'm totally cognizant of it now and use it. I wish I knew my ability to take complex subjects and make them simple, accessible.
Mm-hmm.
I thought everyone does that. Like, it's so obvious. And yeah, I wish I knew that throughout my entire career. It's only an awareness that I have acutely in the last. So
that would have given you more confidence and maybe changed the way you looked at what you were producing.
Totally. And I would double down on that. Like Profit First, I wonder, it's hard to recall now, but I wonder if it was, if I would have leaned into that more and when I wrote it, because I was like, it's so obvious. Like, just take it. Everyone knows this.
Right.
Like, it's even said, like, take your profit first or pay yourself first. Like, everyone knows that phraseology. I'm like, this is so stupidly obvious. But what would change that was when we wrote the article. You wrote the article for the Wall Street Journal, mm-hmm. and we published it. And these emails start pouring in, like, this is a game changer. Thank you. I never thought of this. I'm like, oh, maybe there's something here. And I guess with our abilities, it's true. You have to hear it 1,000 times before you accept it.
Yeah, but I think that's true of so many authors, is they overlook the thing that comes naturally to them, the thing that seems, what, doesn't everybody know this? And then it gets buried in the book.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There should be a spotlight on it.
It should be. What do you wish you knew about marketing?
Well, I wish I understood how one of the challenges with the industry is that because authors don't learn what's going on behind the scenes, they don't really understand that they're missing a bunch of milestones and opportunities. They don't know that they're squandering the time because no one freaking tells them until it's too late. And so I wish I had in the beginning really understood what was going on behind the scenes with respect to marketing. I wish I had accepted the fact that you kind of need a personal brand. I'm just coming to terms with it now for myself.
Yeah. There you go.
Because I don't want it to be like that, but it is.
I hope our listeners underline that there's two products going on. There's the book and there's the author, and those are two different things.
Yeah. And coming up as a playwright, not the case at all. It's the play. So I really didn't get it. And I've been really resistant myself to the personal brand piece because I feel part of it is, just my own conditioning. I like behind the scenes. I'm comfortable there. Part of it is being a Minnesota girl where we're not supposed to draw attention to ourselves. It's just like an entire state of people who don't want to draw attention to ourselves.
The whole state's basically invisible.
What we think is a scene, you would just think is a conversation. Like, don't make a scene. So it's just been hard to come to terms with that, but it is real. The authors who are committed to their personal brand, and I guess I thought it was this gross, like, oh, you don't want to be like too salesy, too egocentric. And it's not. It's actually really essential. So I wish I had known those things.
Yeah, an identity or framing I've used that's really helped me with that, because I do feel it feels like ego, is to call it a spokesperson role. And a spokesperson is someone who speaks vocally about something, but is also not kind of the stake they have in the outcome is a little bit more disconnected. There's a little bit of a wall. So the book is not me and I am not the book. It's what I believe in more than anything. At least that's how I frame it. And it takes away that ego and allows me to push harder for the book because I'm a spokesperson for it. What I wish I knew about marketing was it's really hard, maybe even impossible, to start marketing your book too soon. I've done the other side where I've marketed it aggressively after the launch, but before the launch, I've played too cautiously. There's trepidation, thinking that the awareness will burn out. And it was funny, we were at the event, the author meetup. I can't remember which author it was, but someone's like, "Oh, you got to wait till 8 weeks before. That's when you start pushing."
Clear.
Oh, it was James. It was James, and it makes sense
to him, but he's not a new author anymore.
That's correct, and it makes sense in that it triggers a cascade of momentum for maybe purchases. But to your point, marketing a book is not selling a book, and that's two different things. You can't start marketing soon enough around your concept, your idea. Profit First, the first exposure it had to the public was not the Wall Street Journal article that came out 2 or 3 years prior to the book, whatever it was. It was in Toilet Paper Entrepreneur. There's a line that says Profit First, and there's a line explaining what it is.
Yeah.
That was the kind of the inaugural marketing. And then I spoke about it. When I'm on stage, I'm speaking about it. I was putting it out there over and over and over again and building awareness, which meant people cognizant there was an idea out there, people committing to signing up for a list, for learning more. It's really hard to start marketing your book too soon. I think there is a period where you say, buy the book now, that people forget they bought the book. But marketing it can start years and years in advance.
But further, I want to say that I get why he said that. 8 weeks is about the maximum that anybody can stand to see you talking about your book over and over and over, buy my book, whatever, right? Get that. That's activating your existing network. But there's a ton of stuff you can be doing behind the scenes in terms of author connections, leveraging other, not your primary reader, but your secondary and tertiary readership, getting that going, getting the attention of your publisher, getting enough buzz so that the sales team sees what you're doing, because it's not a freaking democracy. And they're not going to equally promote and sell every single book. That's not happening. They understand they're going to put their money and effort behind the books that have the most potential, and that's just what's going to happen. And so you have to make sure that your book is seen as having the most potential so that they're going to throw more money and more resources and time behind it. And that's part of your job. So I think it's easy to say you only do this 8 weeks out if you're a known author, but it's not going to help you if the sales team has no idea who you are and they're focusing on other books instead. So, that's back to knowledge about how the industry works.
What do you wish you knew about the business of authorship?
Well, I'm going to say this this is more from a publisher perspective from when I was a publisher. I wish I knew. So I don't think I'm going to come at this from a different perspective. I wish I knew that not everyone really wants to do the work. So authors want the outcome, right? But not necessarily the corresponding work and risk involved. And I don't just mean, I'm not talking about financial risk, although that's sometimes the case. I'm talking about personal risk where I just see authors not wanting to put themselves out there. So you're going to climb this giant mountain, which is writing a must-read book, which I hope you're doing. And then now you're just not going to tell anyone about it, or you're just going to do the cursory stuff. And I think I didn't know that. I just thought everybody, if you're writing a book, that you would want people to read it. And I learned the hard way when we had our publishing company, which for our listeners, for about 8 years had a publishing company publishing fiction. And it was an award-winning company, and I'm really proud of it. And we sold that company. It still exists and now owned by Chicago Review Press. What I learned was, I would go out and try and offer deals to authors because we were just getting started. It's like, oh my God, you're a great writer. Have you ever considered publishing a book? We'd love to publish. And then I learned that the people we were offering deals to were less likely to actually try and sell their book than the people who submitted to try and get a deal.
Oh, yeah.
And
interesting and obvious in hindsight.
And I've worked with so many authors who are just they just don't want the corresponding work that goes with the goal.
For me, this is why I wish authors would know that authorship is a business. I think people conflate authorship and writing, and I think they're two different. I know they're two different things. Writing is the process of writing. Authorship is the ideation, the codification, and then the promotion of an idea. But for me, when it comes to the business of authorship, I caught on pretty quickly, but it would help me if I understood from day one, because I wasn't raised in the entrepreneurial space this way. Your biggest competitor in authorship is your biggest friend and ally. In my old businesses, when I did computer crime investigation and computer systems, the tech space I was in, my biggest competitor, if they won the job, I lost the job, or vice versa. So I had to find ways to differentiate and beat them out on every proposal. With authorship, you got to find a way to differentiate, vocalize your own unique voice. But then that competitor, when we talked about this in the prior episode, if people are falling in love with that author's work, they're falling in love with that concept. And if you have something that speaks that concept, that category, that interest, the category of interest they have, but is a different voice, it becomes very appealing to them. And I would say half the authors in the world get that if I can reach out to other authors in the profitability space, Garrett Gunderson would be one. There's other authors. He's more personal finance, but there's other authors in the business finance space. Simple Numbers. I can't remember the author of that book right now, but I did meet with him. If I can collaborate with them and promote their work, it actually elevates mine. And I have a very practical experiment we did. We did a promotion of Michael Gerber's E-Myth when I wrote Clockwork, because they're kind of complementary books, where we didn't mention Clockwork. We didn't say also buy Clockwork. It was in simply the line. It said, from Mike Michalowicz, author of Clockwork. And it said, there's a book that bar none, you have to read if you're serious about building a business that can run independently of you. And it's E-Myth by Michael Gerber. I love this book. people bought that book. I'm getting thank yous from folks that read the book and said, oh, I didn't know this existed. But what was fascinating is within a few days, we saw a bump in Clockwork, and specifically on Amazon, you saw the buy box where it had E-Myth and Clockwork signed together, even though we weren't promoting Clockwork. And that just points to the power of promoting what I perceived as my biggest competitor is really my biggest ally.
Yeah.
Okay, next question is, what do you wish you knew about the industry overall?
When you started.
What do you mean when I started?
When you started out, what do you wish you knew about publishing overall?
Yeah. That's the question to you, though.
Oh, you want me to answer first?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That a lot of people are full of you know what.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think I had too much reverence. I think I had too much deference. I think I was willing to just accept. I thought people were always telling the truth. I think it's I'm known actually for my trusting nature, which sometimes really upsets my wife and my team. And I think I learned the hard way that not everybody is in service. And a lot of people are just full of it. And I actually wish I had known that to begin with, because it was really challenging for me to come to terms with it. And had I known that to begin with, I imagine that I probably would have retired from ghostwriting much earlier. It just, for me, is I don't want to be part of projects where the person behind it is full of you know what.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. And there's so many. And I just wish I had known up front, because I just take people on their word every time. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. I like that quality about myself. But I've had to surround myself with people who are kind of BS detectors, so that they tell me, because I'm more apt to be like, that's amazing. It was really hard. It was really hard to realize that I was caught up in that, and that people aren't always what they seem.
Yeah. The truth comes out. People are very perceptive, and the BS always comes out.
I wrote for some serious BSers who are still doing just fine, Mike.
Oh, real? Okay. There you go.
Yep.
What I wish I knew about the industry overall. I gotta think. I had a thought, but now it's changing. I guess I wish I knew that the industry is an industry. It felt like it was a hobby initially.
You were treating it like another an extension of things, but not.
Yeah, it was just a thing. It was just a thing. It was it's like how I treat guitar. It's like, oh, it's cool. It's kind of fun. I can say I play guitar, but it wasn't a devotion. Nor did I appreciate it's a real industry. One thing I did know, it just took time to land, was that you can also be very financially successful as an author. And the thing, I've shared this, I don't know if I ever shared it on the podcast, but I know I've shared it with you, is I started interviewing authors before Toilet Paper Entrepreneur came out, and was asking, can you be successful with books? And most people said, are you kidding? No way. Like, are you crazy? But then I'd ask people, I say, well, tell me about the books you've published. And the vast majority of those didn't. They were just opining. So I'm like, okay, discredit that or discount that. When I talked to an author that would say, oh, it's hard as hell, you don't make money. Then I said, well, tell me why you don't make money. I was also looking for authors with the counterpoint. And the story is, I met with Tim Ferriss. We were both on a TV show together. And I had a half hour with him in the green room. He had just launched the 4-hour work week.
No, the 40-hour entrepreneur was the crap title that
I know. That's why I started giggling to myself.
Wanted to call Clockwork.
Unbelievable. But the 4-hour work week, and I said, can you make money, through books? And he kind of is like one of those things where his eyes kind of go left and right. Like, is there someone else in the room? Am I being punked? And he goes, you can make an F ton of money as an author. And I was like, you can? And like, how do you do it? And he started, do your research, speak to a subject that no one has spoken to before in your voice, in your way, blah, blah, blah. And starts going through this, promote the living hell out of it, be relentless. And I follow that script, not to a T, not as effectively as he has, but we've moved, I say 1.5 million, it's probably more than that books.
You've been saying that for a while.
Yeah, and Profit First has moved over 1.2, so it can't be, because the other ones have moved hundreds of thousands. So, but whatever it is, that it's made a good income. Mm-hmm. Some people could choose to live on that alone. So I knew that early on, and it served me. The way I looked at books was, this is a source of income. I just wish I knew it was an industry, not a hobby, or really absorbed that earlier. Since you were a publisher yourself, do you have here in the notes here some thoughts and stuff? Do you have kind of a list of other ideas you wanted to share?
I shared a bunch of them already. I think.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I'm just thinking, I wish other authors knew that they belong there. And I think this feeling of, I don't know if I fit here, I don't know if I'm good enough, who's going to read this, who's going to care. It's just killing all the good stuff. And I wish authors knew they absolutely belong there. There's the amount of mediocre pulp that is out there. Come on. Like, the fact that you're listening to this podcast at all and means you're probably going to write a better book than a lot of people. At least you want to. At least you're going to try. And you definitely belong there, but you're feeling like you're outside of it and that you need a ticket or permission or whatever is keeping you from realizing it. Now, to acknowledge, some groups are actually definitely kept out behind the gate for sure. But I just want you to have the attitude that you deserve to be there. I'm talking about just the attitude. Years are wasted while people are trying to wait for admittance to this place that is just anyone can be there as long as you have a commitment to excellence. So I wish authors knew that they absolutely belong.
I'm very fortunate to meet with a lot of aspiring authors, especially from my community. And they'll say, hey, I'd like to get your advice. So I met with an aspiring author, and they shared a book concept already. I'm like, oh, it's interesting. And they said, and I got an advantage. I'm like, oh, what do you mean? They're like, well, I'm using AI.
Oh, Lord.
And it's really elevated my game. And he's like, this is going to be a really good book. And then I did the Tim Ferriss. Am I being punked here? So my eyes kind of skirted around. I'm like, is someone listening in? Like, everyone is using AI. I'm like, you're just simply saying you have a tool that's like a word processor. It's just the next version of it that everyone else is using. That's not an advantage. That's table stake. I'm like, what is your differentiator? How are you going to elevate beyond AI is the question. And he's like, I wasn't thinking I was just going to just use AI. I'm like, well, that's exactly not the book to write. Don't write that book. And I yelled it again. I said, don't write that book. It's a podcast. At the coffee shop, I yelled it out and I left. Anything else you want to share before we wrap it up?
No, I think everybody stick with it and you'll have your own list of things you wish you knew, but hopefully you'll have fewer because you listen to this podcast.
Yeah, this is fun. I hope our listeners are getting a boatload of education and knowledge and having some fun on the journey. Next week, we don't know what we're talking about because we haven't planned next week's episode yet.
We're not there yet.
So, not there yet, but listen, as a listener to our show, you can tell AJ and myself what you want to hear. Email us at hello@dwtbpodcast.com. So that's your call to action. Any questions, any thoughts? Plus we have free material at the website, which is also the same domain. I say it over and over again. I just wonder if there's a single listener that hasn't done this. Have you purchased AJ's book, Write a Must Read? If you haven't, you've lost the plot. Like, if you are committed to being an author, I'm telling you, this is the book that defines all. And if you want to up the game, you can go to ajharper.com and go to one of those retreats or meetups where authors are working together. But start with the book if you haven't yet. One final thing, don't write that book. Write the greatest book you can.